What's up, y'all? I know I've gone live a couple times already. This is my lovely assistant, Taylor, today.
Hey, guys.
And I just want you all to know that she's...
What?
I'm like, I feel inferior right now. I'm like sitting lower. I'm like in this... Maybe we should switch chairs. You can have this nice comfy one and I can sit up nice and taller.
He's upset that I appear as tall as him right now.
I was thinking maybe I'll use my nice Plotkin's vaccine book for what it's actually good for and just use this as a booster seat here real quick. There we go. I look a lot better now. See, that just really man, gosh. Man, the literature on vaccines is good for something. It makes you look more
taller.
Anyways, so slow internet, it says. And I don't know why I need to use that voice when I'm talking slow. So I'm reading through the research paper that was put out by Washington University. One of the articles, and I'll get you guys links and future videos and things like this. This is just on a whim. I wanted to go live, and then Taylor's going to help me out with just some of the personal experience she's had with a child that was raised within the medical community standards. For a little while. Now she's out of that. Now she's my patient. What's that?
I said, now I'm woke.
Now you're woke. So. And she's going to chiropractic school, so we're super excited about that. And she's been helping us serve a lot of our clients and patients all over the U.S. In this clinic right now. And she'll be soon off to chiropractic school. So wish her luck. Great prayers for her and her family. She's going to need them, right?
Yeah, I am going to need all the prayers I can get.
She's all flustered. She was like, "Oh, Dale, you can't do this to me. My hair." She's like, "I can go to the bathroom, check everything out, make sure I look good."
He did this to me on the spot, and I did not come prepared to get on a live video today. So
we're going to have fun and hopefully you all be educated or informed with the information that we'll discuss here today. What time did you have that call with that one patient? 2:30?
Yep. Gotta go.
Dang
I might be back. It's probably going to be quick.
Yeah, it's just a quick checkup. All right, cool. So hopefully she'll come back. I'll get you some of the nuts and bolts of the information that I was hoping that would be of benefit to you all and your family and friends. But Washington University, they say in this article here, the title is Washington or Wash U, says boosting your immune system could help could be treatment strategy for COVID-19. And actually, if you go to Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, they actually say boosting immune system, a potential treatment strategy for COVID-19. That is from the university's own website. Researchers find weakened rather than hyperactive immunity in response to virus. So folks, get this. This is what the medical community has been saying. And this was actually an issue early on when even the herbal community, the natural health community, were talking about, can we use elderberry? Can we use herbs that help boost the immune system? You know what? Elderberry doesn't boost the immune system. It helps in modulating the immune system. It helps your immune system work more efficiently and have a greater functional capacity. Same thing with medicinal mushrooms and many other things. So that being said, there are many beneficial. I mean, they use herbs like that I always joke around. I'm like, shoot, they found that elderberry was effective at preventing coronavirus infection in chickens to save their eggs from becoming weak eggs. It'd be like a weak, squishy egg. Nobody wants an egg shell that's nice and weak and squishy because of coronavirus, so just feed your chickens a little bit of elderberry seeds and, elderberry flour, grind them seeds up. Great for your chickens, and it prevents coronavirus. So I'm like, it's good enough for them. It's good enough for me, But, so I don't like the word boosting either, but that's what Washington University said. What's ironic is we actually got letters and emails from Tennessee Health Department and even the Tennessee Chiropractic Association and Tennessee Chiropractic Board saying you're not allowed to talk about boosting the immune system during this pandemic. They didn't want us talking about things that would be able to help in, whether you want to call it strengthening or boosting or supporting, there's terms we weren't allowed to use, and boosting was one of them, so I find it ironic that we were told not to use the term boosting when talking about good things to do for your immune system, which could be as simple as eating garlic. WebMD has an article about boosting your immune system with garlic. And it's all over the peer-reviewed medical literature. I mean, so it's like, can I not quote research studies that literally say boosting the immune system helps when in different herbs can do so in helping you fight off an infection? Am I not allowed to talk about how your secretory IgA, your immune system component of your mucosal membrane, that is your mask? It is like Dr. Patrick with the Wellness Way has been talking about that, how creating your own mask out of your mucosal membrane immune system would be, anything's better than wearing a stupid mask day in, day out that does nothing but harbor bacteria and actually collect viruses than you're repetitively exposed to. That's what the fake man-made masks do. But the mask God gave you is actually your secretory IgA immune system. And they even found that people were under chiropractic care getting spinal adjustments. And I say chiropractic care because they're doing spinal adjustments, but yet a lot of these studies are done in hospitals with osteopathic physicians doing adjustments to the spine as well. So I don't care if you get it from an osteopath as long as they have great training in spinal adjustments. And if they do, and they can remove stress on your nervous system, fantastic, love it. I don't care what degree they have, as long as they're doing good for you. And that's the goal, But improve mucosal membrane secretory IgA immunity, thus shielding you against bacterial infections, viral infections, any infection. It would ultimately mean that you had greater capacity to ward off pneumonia and severe illnesses. So why not talk about the things that would be beneficial for your immune system? But I was reading through that, and then I got the original, because that's what I do. I always go to the original. I don't like media and things like that. So those are even the universities write up on it, and it's more of a press briefing or press release. So here, as I'm reading it, which took me down this little bit of a rabbit hole that I wanted to talk to you all about, is personalized medicine approaches require better understanding. I'm like, this is like one of the best articles I've ever read in peer-reviewed science. I'm like, that's what we do. That's what Wellness Way doctors do. People like myself, we do testing, we do personalized care and recommendations. We don't just do blanket recommendations for everybody to do exactly the same thing like drug pharma philosophy does. But so they say that an appropriate intervention is dramatically different depending on whether the patient is suffering from hyperinflammation or profound immunosuppression. And in fact, they say some of the examples of studies to see what works for coronavirus, what could help people, they're just throwing things at people. You know what? They're throwing things. They've got studies out there going that are anti-IL-6 antibodies, IL-1 receptor agonist, antagonist, Janase kinase. That's an important one because I'm going to talk to you in that in just a minute, a little bit more in depth. Inhibitors are currently under clinical testing for COVID-19 patients, and they can carry the potential for further compromise a patient's ability to eradicate the virus. Those are all immunosuppressive treatments in the pharmaceutical model. All right. And then they also say, conversely, treatment with immune stimulants such as checkpoint inhibitors, IL-7, interferon theta, I believe it is, GM-CSF, currently either proposed or in active trials in COVID-19 patients. So they're literally trying right now, without understanding a full and better understanding, until this Washington University article and research came out saying that the majority are immunosuppressed. Now, I will say they were doing blood tests on people who were on ventilators. So a portion of them were on ventilators, and doing those blood tests would be skewed because the drugs they give patients to put them on ventilators are well established to contribute to the development of severe pneumonia because they are immunosuppressant. They put people on certain drugs that may not have the purpose of being immunosuppressant, but have the effect, the side effect of being immunosuppressant. So they suppress your immune system while putting you on a ventilator. And when you're fighting a virus, you better have a healthy immune response. So treatment and the immune stimulants, so they do both, one or the other. So meanwhile, they didn't even know whether they're dealing with an issue caused from too weak of an immune system or too strong and hyperactive immune response. Here's what was ironic to me, and this is what medicine does. So one, they thought, first, let's go to some ones that suppress the immune system. So there's pharma's philosophy. Let's just do the exact opposite. And what I was going to have Taylor do for y'all is talk about the reality of the use of fever reducers, because according to Tennessee Health Department actually gave guidance, their guidance PDF. I don't know if y'all could see that, but I got COVID-19 Tennessee Health Department guidance. So let me show you this. Let me read it to you. Monitor your health, they say. See, this is also part of medicine's monitor. It'd be like saying that you're living in the Florida Keys, that their suggestion to monitor your health, which is there's no specific treatment for COVID-19. Get plenty of rest, stay hydrated, which are, they're like, duh, like slap your forehead, duh. You know, that's a good thing to do because honestly, you feel fatigued. So your body's telling you to rest. And yeah, staying hydrated would be beneficial. Absolutely. Especially if you started having diarrhea or throwing up. But those are like, duh. Everybody should know that already, hopefully. But luckily, they gave you expert medical advice there. And if needed, take medication to reduce your fever. Now, I'll talk about that later, but every study ever published in human trials, except for a couple in severe patients, but yet they were biased. And I read the original studies, in which I'm not going to go through it in detail now. They weren't showing that you were improving survival because you were reducing a fever. All right. Many of them, no harm, no benefit, made them feel comfortable. But they do show multiple studies in both animals and in humans and in the elderly that reduction of fever, reducing fever, especially with drugs like Tylenol, acetaminophen, paracetamol, those medications increase your risk of dying from infections. All right. So that was their recommendation. We'll go into that in a second. Back to the GNase kinase inhibitors. GNase kinase stat inhibitors. All right. So what that does is it's an inhibitor of IL-21, interleukin 21. And the reason this is kind of a rabbit hole I've been down lately is because of the evaluation. All right. So if you go to the New England Journal of Medicine, the mRNA 1273 vaccine against SARS-CoV-2 in non-human primates. So this was an animal study, and they monitored the immunological response and long-term immune responses to this coronavirus vaccine that they're giving to the animals. One of the substantial and significant findings was that 8 weeks post-vaccination in the high-dose regimen as well as in the low-dose vaccine regimen. Over normal placebo-controlled animals, they had significantly elevated IL-21, interleukin 21. So if you go to other clinical studies and research studies, guess what? Clinical significance, immunobiology of IL-21 in autoimmunity. Autoimmunity, so you look at ITP, you look at type 1 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, that's lupus. You look at Sjogren's syndrome. You look at autoimmune thyroiditis, Hashimoto's, psoriasis. All of these autoimmune conditions, guess what they find? Extremely elevated IL-21. IL-21, interleukin 21, is a very potent inflammatory cytokine or communicator for your immune system to upregulate its inflammatory arm and downregulate anti-inflammatory arms of your immune system. Now, so the vaccine for coronavirus substantially elevates interleukin 21. Now, if we go back to what is a GNase kinase inhibitor, it suppresses IL-21. So here's medicine. Just do the exact opposite of what the body is actually wanting to do or needing to do. If you have a fever, suppress it. If you have, elevated, or they didn't even know, they didn't even measure. They just said, let's see if we can suppress the immune system, the inflammatory arm of the immune system. So let's give them a GNase inhibitor. So they give them a GNase inhibitor to see, and lo and behold, it didn't save lives. So while suppressing it, see, your body's doing what it needs to do. That's what you need to realize. Your body is very, very intelligent unless you are substantially deficient or you're in a state of immunological dysfunction. rabbit hole in my brain kind of went down there, but I don't want to detail too much, is that did you know that HIV patients, people with HIV can also have autoimmune conditions? So HIV isn't just an immunosuppressive virus. It can be an immunodysregulating virus. That's what people need to understand. But they're basically using these inhibitors to suppress IL-21, but their vaccine that they want to come out with will upregulate IL-21. So to treat COVID patients, let's suppress IL-21. To prevent COVID, let's increase IL-21. That's medicine for you, folks. Just do exactly the opposite. So hopefully, let me see if I can bring up. Oh, other crazy stuff I found was a critics slam treatment for SARS as ineffective and perhaps dangerous. This came from SARS coronavirus 1. They were giving antiviral medications that weren't found to be effective against the SARS coronavirus. And this is different than the one they're suggesting now. But what they find? They found that multiple autopsies of SARS coronavirus victims found evidence of damage to the lymph nodes and spleen. These findings could be side effects of the drug that could cause and affect the virus or even an immune response to the virus, thus suppressing the immune response. Thus, multi-system organ inflammation and organ failure, Kawasaki disease, could be a side effect of one of the drugs that they used in the past for SARS coronavirus. So it's just ironic. So let me see if there's any questions real quick before we get, and I might have to do this video again with Taylor since I was hoping, but we had to check up on a patient real quick. So let me take a look here on Facebook. Just give me a second. Say no to masks, Becky says. Here, they just made the flu vaccine mandatory for kids for daycare, preschool, and beyond in Massachusetts. Where did this come from? So, Pierre, that's where you need to get on my website, thewilddoc.com, and please download. I did one where the CDC-funded study showed that unvaccinated children, had less respiratory illness than did vaccinated children, both short and long term. That's a CDC-funded study. There's also another study that shows that influenza vaccines given to children increase their risk of multiple different respiratory illnesses, including coronaviruses, the general common cold coronavirus, you would call it. So if that's the research, mandating it would be harmful according to the research that's published and provided to us by government funding. All right, so Tiffany, thymus plus oil oregano. D is good to have in your medicine cabinet, my go-tos. I love all of those. One word to the wise. I love thymus, glandulars. Vitamin D is absolutely critical. You should be taking that before you ever get sick because therapeutic dosage of vitamin C or vitamin D oftentimes see limited effect. They did have some positive effects in, I believe, some SARS coronavirus patients with high dose vitamin D, even within the hospital setting. Again, there's some other research I got. Oil of oregano, great antimicrobial, but again, be careful with some of these strong, potent oils because if you take them as more of a preventive, you can actually wreck your digestive tract. Somebody says garlic daily. Heather said that. Awesome. Yeah, I was laughing because I'm actually going to do a video for you all critiquing an article that talked about quacks basically boasting about boosting your immune system. And I'm like, the article was published several months ago and they went through like kombucha and antioxidants and vitamin C and all these things. They oddly enough didn't go through herbs or herbs like elderberry, honeysuckle, or medicinal mushrooms. That was the other thing I was going to say, is medicinal mushrooms, which are more immunomodulatory. And that's one of the things that kind of breaks my heart about the fact that science is ignored. Folks, science is ignored. So medicine is currently trying drugs that suppress the immune system, and they're also trying to see if drugs that enhance the immune system will help people with coronavirus. And yeah, it would be great to know whether stimulants or suppressors would be better for the patients. So it's good that they're experimenting on all these people. But what's better than even doing that right off the bat? Why not utilize the scientific evidence we already have of the various different herbs like honeysuckle that are potent inhibitors of viral illness, that aren't going to suppress the immune system, but actually improve immunomodulation. And modulation is basically that it modulates, it controls better, it is regulated better, it's stronger, but it's also a well-regulated immune system. So you want a strong immune system. It's kind of like a military that doesn't just go haphazard, blasting and bombing everything. There's a lot of collateral damage when they do that. But if you have very specific communication within the military and you take out only the bad guys, that's the best military you could have. They're well regulated, but they're extremely strong when they need to be. All right. They've got the big guns. They've got the missiles. They got the fighter jets. They got the weapons they need to be very specific and calculated. And that's what's amazing about herbs. Most herbs are not immunostimulatory. Very few, even when they're used as more of immunomodulatory, like wormwood or Romania or mushrooms, in use in people who have autoimmune conditions, which is typically one portion of their immune system is upregulated. See, medicine says just let's suppress their immune system. Let's give them an immunosuppressant. When in reality, they could be using herbs that are found not to suppress the entire immune system, but suppress components of the immune system that are hyper-regulated or upregulated or dysfunctional. They're too high in people who have autoimmune conditions like IL-21, which in interleukin-21, one of the herbs found was artemisinin, or wormwood, was found to downregulate IL-21, but actually still be beneficial to helping to strengthen the immune system against bacterial infections and other viral illnesses. So it didn't suppress it so much, just a blanket suppression that left them weakened to infections. That's the problem with the medical route and the medical way in pharma's philosophy also, is that they just do one thing and it's not beneficial. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's oftentimes what they end up doing. So I heard her say goodbye there. One patient forced to wear masks 8 hours a day. I challenged the school board with the mask facts, but they refused to listen. In fact, I was cut off. They didn't want to hear. No, they don't want to hear. They could care less. It's really, really sad. So, all right. So, yeah. Let me pull up because I just want to read it here to you real quick. Because again, this goes back to the COVID-19 recommendations by the Tennessee Health Department. It says, monitor your health. And this is what I was joking around. I don't think I finished that thought. Was it's like if you lived in the Florida Keys and they said, hey, there's a huge hurricane coming with potential destructive winds. We're going to monitor it. Stay in place. Don't do anything. Would you be like, that's a great idea?
No, get the heck out of there.
You have common sense. You have too much common sense to work for the medical community. I'm sorry. See, this is medical thinking. Monitor your health. Don't do anything. Just watch what happens while a potential destructive. Again, I have said coronavirus has been around a long time. We know how they cycle. We know how they act to a degree. We know that if we were doing things to fortify people's immune defenses that are beneficial and non-harmful, then guess what? We would be saving a whole lot of lives. If they would have been using the evidence that showed that zinc deficiency was very prevalent, it was widespread in nursing homes, why didn't they just start supplementing with something that the majority of people are deficient in nursing homes? How many less people would have died in New York and all these other places in our nursing homes if they would have applied that? And not only would it effectively reduce COVID-19 or coronavirus deaths, but it could potentially reduce deaths from all-cause pneumonia, and that's what the science has shown. They don't do it though. Do they not care? If we're about, this is one of the issues I got. If we were about saving lives, why don't they do things that are shown to save lives? Yeah, she has no clue. No clue. She doesn't understand. That's why she's not going to medical school.
That's right.
So monitor your health, fever reducer. It's just, they're stupid. I'm sorry, you're stupid if you're saying people just monitor yourself. Don't do anything actually beneficial for your immune system. And then they said after that, it's like, take a fever reducer and then arrange for care. I was like, they got it in order. Take something that suppresses your immune system. And after you do that, go ahead and then arrange for more intensive care. Because you just hurt yourself by our recommendations. So tell them about your experience with your daughter. I literally asked her, I was like, this is ridiculous. It's like the perfect order. And she's like, yeah, and then I asked about, what was I saying about?
You're talking about our patients that are going to nurse practitioner school.
So we have 2 patients, husband and wife, going to nurse practitioner school, and they're literally going through their clinicals right now. And they went through like boards and everything. And my buddy actually told me, and I'm going to hold his name back. But what's really cool is they're not even going to vaccinate their children anymore, because once I started showing them scientific peer-reviewed studies and then showing them the legal documents that show that the CDC has been, 1, they have researchers confessing to lying. 2, they have researchers who are wanted fugitive with the Paul Thorson with the OIG, Office of Inspector General, for lying about vaccines. They have Defense Department lawyers and scientists who've stated that they have misrepresented their statements that vaccines could cause autism, and they twisted their words to say that vaccines don't cause autism. So this is our government for you all, folks. So once you start showing legal documents and actual peer-reviewed scientific literature on vaccines, you can take a nurse practitioners who are studying medicine and being taught by medical universities, and they'll basically say, yeah, we're not following the medical regimen and rigmarole and recommendations on vaccines. So they're really intelligent people. So he came to me one day and he's like, you're not going to believe this. My professor, they were basically asking for us to set up a pretend protocol for somebody coming in to the hospital. And he's like, these are protocols for people with broken bones. Some are infectious in nature, some are not. And he's like, patients like, patient profile, no elevated fever. And he didn't put fever reducer, and he got docked for it. Mm. And he's like, he looked at the professor and he goes, why did I get docked for not putting a patient on a fever reducer when they don't have a fever? Legit. This is what his professor said. That is standard process, standard protocol for anybody coming into the emergency department and admitted to the hospital. Everyone is put on a fever reducer. And he goes, why? His professor says, because if they develop a fever while at the hospital, then it is considered a hospital-acquired infection. And to prevent that legality, seriously, to prevent a legality of hospital-acquired infection, give them an immunosuppressive drug, a fever reducer, so that they don't have legal ramifications because they made the patient sick while at the hospital. That was his professor's explanation of why they do that. Y'all folks think that hospitals and doctors are doing things, everything they do is for your good? No, it is to protect the liability. Yep. So what'd they do for your daughter?
Yeah, so we were frequent flyers at the ER. And as soon as we got her into triage, they, all right off the bat, would, give her Tylenol. Or if I said that, I'd already given her something, they'd ask, well, was it Tylenol or ibuprofen? And whichever one I hadn't given her, they'd give her the other one.
Let me look up here, because I want to get this for you folks. I want to read it directly to you. Because here's the reality. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not saying don't take the drugs that doctors give you in the hospital or whatever. I can't say that. But I think I would like for you to be equipped with evidence and information so that if you do end up in the hospital, God forbid, that you'll have the ability to be able to ask very specific and precise questions. And so doing, you'll be able to protect you and your family. So let me find this real quick. And I want to read, because what I can do is when I read directly from research studies, okay. Contrasting reports, 2 studies demonstrate improved outcomes following antipyretic administration, while a lot of studies, animal and human, several studies demonstrated increased mortality risk associated with antipyretic. Antipyretic is fever reducers. Demonstrated fever's benefits during infection. Results also demonstrate that health professionals continue to view fever as deleterious. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So health professionals, say that real slow with me with a weird accent. Health professionals fear fever. They believe fever's deleterious. Can you give us the definition of deleterious?
Declining.
Okay, good enough. Or that it's detrimental.
Yeah, detrimental.
The evidence does not currently support routine antipyretic. Let me read you again the Tennessee Health Department's recommendations for in-home, at-home care. If needed, take fever-reducing medication. So the Tennessee Health Department wants you to take something that's deleterious. See, even our health department here in Tennessee has no clue what they're doing. Don't be so hard on them, Dr. Dale. They're nice people. They really want to help people. Well, how did they get their job then? It might be, maybe they do have a good heart and want to help people, but they're idiots. They don't know.
They're not.
That's what an idiot is. It's okay to use the word idiot every once in a while, because it has a definition. It is a harsh term, but it is what it is, folks.
Yeah. I mean, it got to the point where they're at the end of us having so many hospital visits. I knew about, the benefits of fevers and letting the fevers right out. So it got to the point where we would go, they'd ask me if I'd given her anything, and I'd just be like, yeah, because I didn't want them to give her more. And I felt like if I just were to say no, that they would
basically pressure me,
make me feel like I wasn't doing everything good for her. And one of the last times we were there, she was really sick, and I just couldn't bear the thought of them giving her Tylenol and making her more sick.
Yep.
So.
And this is the reality. It may make your child feel better, but folks, listen, cuddling with your child, staying in the same room with them, being right by their side, cuddling with them, sleeping through the night with them, being there for them. I take warm, hot showers with my kids or lay in the bath with my newborn. If they ever have a fever, we breastfeed like crazy when they have a fever. You let them be the clingy little baby, because that is the best thing possible for them. If you give a fever reducer so that they'll sleep more soundly, I've heard that a lot from parents. And thank God none of them told me. I gave them a fever reducer and they passed on in the night. But that has happened. Mm-hmm. Just because they feel better doesn't mean that they're healthier. Doesn't mean that I would rather my child have a level of discomfort than be immunocompromised because I gave them a drug so that they could sleep better or I could sleep better. Folks, that's a heart-to-heart right now. Please. So here's the title of this article, and you can literally Google this, get it right away if you need it, and read through it. But it's antipyretic drugs in patients with fever and infection. It's a literature review. All right. Fever is a symptom, not an illness in itself, and it is defined as a controlled rise in body temperature. Many times I'll get people ask me, but drugs don't work. So antipyretic drugs would never work for this scenario, but head injuries, you do need to if the body is in a neurological state of dysfunction, but that's more of neurological dysfunction,
can't control,
not an infectious disease, and it's not a chemical imbalance. It's a neurological dysfunction taking place. So in that situation, cooling the body down, especially the head, keeping it without going way, way high, is life-saving. So they do see that in head injuries. So that's the scenario outside of what we're talking about here in terms of infection. It is a complex physiological adaptive response to infection, which gives hosts survival advantages during illness. If you get equipped with that right there, just that first couple paragraphs in this peer-reviewed medical literature study, an article, guess what? And you have that on hand, put it in your glove box. God forbid if you ever have to go to the emergency department, have that on hand. God forbid you're ever at your pediatricians or you have family members saying, you need to lower her fever. It's 103. No, folks, let me read you this.
Hear it all the time.
You hear it from your family
Yeah.
still. And she works for the Wild
I
Doc.
know.
I always tell people, just tell your family to watch every Wild Doc video ever, and then they can talk. Like, not just watch the videos that are on my website, but also read every single one of the peer-reviewed literature studies that I post. These are PubMed research articles, New England Journal, Lancet, Cochrane Database of Systematic Reviews, like major university and journal articles. Like I just say, watch the videos, get an understanding, read the articles for
Then we can
yourself.
talk.
Make sure that what I'm saying is the truth and you understand it yourself, and then use the studies, not the Wild Doc said, Dr. Dale said. You know, I hate it when people say that, because it's literally, I pride myself on, and I hate pride comes before the fall. So God, please forgive me for using the word pride, knock on wood. You know, I'm not prideful about it, but I work my tail off to give you research studies, access to them, links to them, so that when I say this, I'll see people. I even seen a medical physician. It's touted as being like one of the, and granted, I've learned from him in regards to genetic abnormalities and things like that. I'm going to withhold his name because I'm saying something possibly seen as negative. But in his tweet on Twitter, it said, fever's good, but if it gives above 103, then maybe cool the body, but don't use antipyretic drugs. Use like a cool rag. But again, I say, did he not read the ferret study? The ferrets lost their lives so that he would understand that hair on a ferret is beneficial for them to fight off an infection.
It's true.
You knew that? Because you work.
Yeah,
for
because I hear you talk about it all the time.
I'm like, I always love saying, I'm like, never shave the hair off your ferrets when they're fighting an infection. If they do, give them a sweater, knit them a little sweater, and you better do it quick because they need that temperature pretty dang quick.
Yeah.
But any manner of fever reduction, lowering the temperature increases risk of dying.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't give a lamp to a lizard, your lizards need a lamp to fight off infection. But he said 103, the highest mortality rates in patients with max temperatures lower than 38 degrees Celsius. What's 38 degrees Celsius? Do you know?
Is it, I don't know, like 100?
100. Let's see what it is. I think it's
I should know this.
102. Anybody can do the math real quick? I have to like punch it in. 38 C.
Oh, I was right.
So
100.4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're pretty dang close. So what is 40 degrees Celsius then?
I don't know. 102, 101. I can't think of the calculation.
So what do most people, most parents, and most individuals think is a harmful fever? What degree? I just said it.
104.
104. Well,
103.
103. One of the most common statements I hear from parents is that 103. So let's look at 40 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit.
104.
Yep.
Yeah.
104 to even a 105.1
Helen's
has been
was
shown.
105 last time.
Yep.
And she had pneumonia. And I got hammered hard by people that I live with to give her Tylenol because they just couldn't understand how I could watch her be
Let
so
her
sick
suffer.
and let her suffer. But I knew from research and listening to Dr. Dale that her body was just doing what it needed to do. And she recovered just fine from pneumonia and
Yep.
recovered fairly quickly after that high fever that she had. So,
And it's in what is sad is, you know, her in regards to her daughter and family members trying to give you advice on you got to lower the fever, you got to do this, that, and the other. You got to go by, well, doctors say.
yeah.
You know, there's a level of faith in medicine that they do not deserve.
Mm-hmm.
The pharmaceutical companies, I tell people time and time again, they have lied to the American government, the American people, medical physicians. They've committed fraud so many times. How can anybody trust them ever again? Like it's ridiculous. But that level of faith in the consensus, there's a scientific consensus. There's not a scientific consensus that fever reducers are healthy or beneficial. There's actually a scientific peer-reviewed medical literature consensus that the evidence points towards serious harm and increases in your child or yourself dying from an infection, but the health department tells you to take it. The majority of medical physicians would tell you to take one when it gets up to that 104. But again, what does that say right there?
No mortalities in patients with max temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius.
Say it again for the medical physicians in the back row.
No mortalities in patients with max temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit.
So you're equipped with that, you can shut your family up pretty dang quick, but do it in love. Don't do it like I do sometimes. I'm sorry. I love them. I just get frustrated that the fact, go ahead. Say something else about me. I love that.
You're just very passionate and you care a lot about, informing others so that they can be more equipped for their families and their family's health. And I think it comes across sometimes as you being harsh, but it's not. And I feel like the people that know you and that are close to you know that your passion is with so much love and just care.
Thank you. She needs to be on the show more often, doesn't she?
He didn't pay me to say that, by the way.
I didn't pay him for her time, technically. But see, I'm technical on everything. When I read articles about these kids dying, whether they want to blame the flu or COVID or anything else, and I read they went to their doctors, they got put on a fever reducer and antiviral. It's time and time and time again. It's repetitive. They went to their doctor. They were running a little bit of fever. They diagnosed them with flu. They told them they probably had a cold. They probably had, who knows. And they send them home with a fever reducer. They just suppress their immune system. That could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Some kids with an infection, they are malnourished. They have serious underlying factors in their health that,
or they've
God
been
forbid,
vaccinated and their immune systems
are now completely dysfunctional.
Yeah.
There's factors that lead to severe outcomes and, God forbid, deadly outcomes when somebody does catch an infection because of many different factors that could play in on that child, whether it be by choice or not by choice, by the individual, the child, or by the choices of the parent. Many of those, every one of those parents are typically not choosing to do harm to their children to suppress their immune system, but they're listening to the world's way of doing things. They go back to that pharma philosophy, thinking that we need to do the opposite. The body does that, do the opposite. They think like medical physicians who have educations, but yet it just said science shows less risk of dying, no deaths in the groups. Sample size was how big?
502.
So what is that? NSAIDs and paracetamol associated with what?
Increased
Mortality in septic patients. That was a big study.
Yeah. And what's funny? The last time I was at Vandy with my child, they thought she could have had some kind of blood infection because of her blood counts were so high.
Yeah.
They still wanted to give her Tylenol anyways as soon as we got there.
And it's just, that could be the final straw for that child. How many of these children, how many of these people that are dying of COVID, and I want to quote that, dying of COVID is what they'll say, but they didn't die from COVID. They died from medical malpractice. But let me tell you something legally. Guess what, folks? A doctor doing something that it flies in the face of the majority or all of the scientific evidence out there isn't considered medical malpractice as long as it's the standard and protocol. As long as they're doing what everybody else would do, it's not medical malpractice. So as long as everybody's doing harm to their patients, then it's okay and it's legal. That is the way they define medical malpractice. The science shows harm. The science shows a fever is beneficial. The science shows they could be killing your child, that the only reason your child died of the infection was because of medical advice. But it's not medical malpractice because everybody's doing it. And it's the medical consensus.
They don't listen to their own science, though.
Yep. They don't teach this. Like I said, nurse practitioners, husband and wife, both going through school. Both like it's ridiculous what we learn. We are literally told, he's like, we're told to harm people. And their professor even was like, yeah, a fever is what the body does in response to help fight off an infection, but it's a legality issue. So they'd rather not get sued. Let's go in the legal thing real quick here. I just think about that. So they could give you what science says is deadly and harmful to your child, and your child dies because of their recommendations, but you can't sue them. Now, because you could sue them, if your child got an infection while at the hospital, they'll give them a fever reducer, which would increase their risk of dying from the hospital-acquired infection. But now you still can't sue them. They kill your child. Either way they kill your child, you can't sue them because it's standard practice and protocol. They will protect their rear ends from getting sued by increasing your child's risk of dying.
Yeah.
Folks, there are tens of thousands of people dead today, no longer with us, simply because they took their medical physician's advice. Simply because the Tennessee Health Department says, take a fever reducer if necessary. Anything else we should say or rant about? How's your daughter doing now?
She's doing a lot better. I mean, I haven't taken her to the doctor and can't even think the last time. Yeah, we fight off everything at home now, and she comes and gets adjusted. And I mean,
and it's not like, and one of the things I don't like that many people say is, how do people change this? Somebody says, well, maybe we'll answer a couple questions. Let's look at some questions. But, she still gets an infection.
Oh, yeah.
But she fights them off.
Yeah.
You know
she fights them off, and it's definitely been less frequent.
Yeah.
Like there for a while, it was like back to back to back to back to back, a million different things. And then started getting her adjusted regularly and just stayed away from the doctor's office. I would prolong it as much as I could. And then now we're just to the point where she'll get viruses and colds and stuff, but we fight them off at home, and there's no need.
Because what's interesting in the literature is there's ends of the spectrum where people who have no infections have higher risks of problems and health issues, certain types of cancers and certain types of autoimmune conditions, because their immune system is revved up. So it kind of like kills things before they get symptomatic viral infection or bacterial infections. But then there's the opposite end of the spectrum, like with your daughter, where if they have extremely weak immune systems, they get sick very frequently. So if you're on opposite ends, you have a higher risk. Like I tell people, like, I feel like it's harmful that natural health doctors will say and quote, and I'd be like, listen, I don't want even my child to be under your care if you're saying they never, ever, ever, ever get an infection.
Yeah.
They never run a fever, because actually that's harmful.
Yeah.
Never. All right. I want my kids to get chicken pox. I want them to get measles. I want them to get the mumps. I want them because I want my little girl to be able to, if she wishes, once she's married and she's like 65, if she wants to have children, she can. Okay.
65. Don't you want to be around to be a grandpa?
Yes, I do. I'm just kidding around. But yeah, it's just, those infections can be beneficial when they're not malnourished and they're well taken care of, and they're not taking things like vaccines and drugs that are immunodysregulatory, like destructive, deleterious, So, that's one thing, because our children still catch a cold, but they fight it off, Like I said, what was one last thing, kind of my personal perspective, like even as a child, I gained knowledge of the benefit of increasing your thermal temperature and helping your body, assisting the body. I literally I remember even like we had this ugly shag blue carpet, like remember laying on the carpet in my mom and dad's room, on the floor, pillow blanket, like that was my little, and even making like a sheet teepee, with chairs and stuff, and laying in there and just feeling god awful. I remember my dad laying on the floor cuddling with me. I was real young and by myself, no parent in the room at the moment. I just said, I'm getting up. I've been like 4 or 5 days, high temperature, and just feeling awful. And I literally I was probably less than 10 years old. I said, I know what I need to do. It was like one of those things where innately we know. Yeah. Like lizards seek light, a lamp. They seek the sun. Ferrets curl up in a ball and they conserve warmth. We bundle up. You feel cold, but you're running a high temperature. Your brain, God designed your body so intelligently that your brain says, I'm cold. Thus, your actions would be to bundle up and help you conserve energy and increase your temperature by an outside source, a blanket, a heating blanket, a hot bath, a hot tub, those types of things. Laying, again, skin to skin contact with your kids is extremely beneficial in that moment in time when they're fighting off an infection. All right. So, I remember Amos had the chicken pox, and I literally at night, it was blanket over the two of us, no shirt on, him in nothing but a diaper. And I'm just both arms around him. And that's the way he slept, and slept well, really, really well. Blanket over the two of us. And he wanted my arms around him. Yeah. So innately he would take my hands and no, it wasn't just for daddy, I love you and please show me love. His body knew that me hugging him was supporting his thermal regulation, is helping to support that elevated temperature. So again, when I was a little kid, I remember specifically going in and turning the shower on as hot as I physically could stand it. Turn your skin red hot. And again, I can't say I'm recommending this because this is just for information, my personal experience, because I've got to be legally protected. And I'm doing that to legally protect myself against lawsuits, because as I share research and evidence and information, if I'm perceived to be giving medical advice on Facebook or YouTube, then yeah. Anyways, but again, I'm showing experience. I'm reading research. That's why I can walk away at the end of the day and say, listen, I gave you beneficial information. Do with it what you will. If it benefits you and your loved ones, thank God. Take it to your medical physicians. Print this off. Somebody said, how could we help? What could we do to end this misinformation of medicine and pharma? Grab that research paper and hand it to your medical physician every time you go. Yeah. Until they say, wow, didn't know that. Thanks for handing me that. Hand it to your brothers, your sisters, your aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, teach people something as simple as this. Thousands and thousands, millions of lives would be saved worldwide if we stopped treating fever, if we stopped interfering with God's design. Again, I literally took that hot shower and got out and fell asleep for like 30 minutes, woke up, was ready to play. Yeah. Recovered. Boom. Just like that. Like I can remember it plain as day to this day. It was one of those burned on my skin ingrained memories. It's burned in my memory. Pun intended there.
I feel like there's just so much like intervention this day and age, and doctors telling people don't, we have this innate ability, this intuition of things that our bodies need. But I feel like there's so much doubt implanted into people and lack of confidence because the medical community has, led people to believe that our bodies can't. We're just dumb. Well, our bodies are dumb.
Yep. Well, even Dr. Greg, mentor, very rapidly becoming a best friend to me in the Wellness Way. He's one of our Wellness Way coaches. He coaches hundreds of doctors probably. And he was teaching us on Tuesday, and he was going through a typical lab for somebody dealing with hormonal problems. Mm-hmm. And he went through, and it's extremely low testosterone, but then through aromatase pathways, you got all these high estrogens. Mm-hmm. And he's and he showed us a few other things. And he's so what is the typical protocol some of you would come up with? And there were several people. I knew it was a trick question, so I didn't answer. You like that? The trick question, just don't answer. Even if you don't know the answer for sure, just don't answer because I know Greg. So, and I've learned from him. And one I've learned from him, and plus the reason I joined Wellness Way, and there are doctors across the U.S. That can help you with this type of thing, with proper testing, immunological testing, to hormonal testing, to digestive tract health testing, things like that. And Greg was like, most of you do passion flowers, aromatase inhibitor. Most of you would do chasteberry because it's low progesterone. But he's like, you have to think about, why is the body doing this? What is causing the body? And you have to change your mindset. He's like, if any of you could walk away with the best thing that I could teach you today is not what herb to use for this type of patient, this situation with the labs. He's like, the first thing you do is always approach with saying, the body is intelligent. What is it trying to do? Ask that question first, because medicine and drugs, and even functional med docs, I see so many patients going through functional med and being put on all these supplements, and they feel better and they do better and they're off drugs. And so they've benefited massively, but yet they come to me and they're like, if I quit these, they're spending thousands of dollars on,
it's a lot,
on supplements every month sometimes. And they're like, I can't keep doing this, you know? And they're like, they give me 10. Like, I had one patient, what was the patient this week? Like, literally, she's like, I walked out with she's like 30 pills I had to take every day.
And every time they go in, they add more.
Add more. And so medicine, the medical model's teaching and mindset is the body is dumb. The pharma philosophy is do the exact opposite of what the body is doing. Don't ask, how can we assist in what the body is doing? So you approach, and if you could change one thing and change your perspective on this, say first and ask first, why is the body doing this? And say to yourself, the body is intelligent. God's design is extremely intelligent. It's perfect. And am I fighting against what the body's trying to do? Or am I working with what the body is trying to do? Pharma says that your design, God was dumb, and they need to save you from your fever and what God designed your body to do. Wellness Way is always going to approach you and your health and saying the body is extremely intelligent. Why is this person in this situation? Why are they? I mean, I'll give a perfect, simple explanation only because it came up in discussion. We've got one patient now pregnant, congratulations, healthier, anxiety was down, bowel movements improved, restoration of cycles, and ovulation. And now another patient though, I've seen patients dealing with infertility. And it's heartbreaking, but sometimes it comes down as simple as you're in an abusive relationship. And there's a very, very, very good reason that you can't get pregnant because your body's doing the right thing. Because God knows that if you're under that much stress and that much abuse, you cannot be pregnant because it's harmful environment for both you, it's dangerous for the mother, and it's dangerous for the child. Folks, many women's infertility problems could be solved with that one simple question of, is the body doing the right thing? And if it is, we need to figure out why the stress hormones are through the roof. What's going on? I'll look at labs and not just say we need to suppress that hormone real quick because it's too high. I'll say what's causing that to be too high. If we can figure out that, not only will you maybe have restoration of fertility and health, but it's safer for you and baby, but also we may get down to the nitty gritty of what's going on in that person's life that could literally save their life. Save them from a traumatic, God forbid, situation. See, that's the job of a Wellness Way doc. That's what we do. It's probably good to end on something like that, right?
That's a good note. That's a good note.
So, but we love you all. I really do. This is kind of a longer video than what I thought, but I really hope this information is beneficial to you. Again, I think just another takeaway is that mindset. But again, I'm going to read the title of this because I think it really will strongly equip the mothers and fathers out there. And spread the message, spread the information to your family members when they say reduce a fever. It's antipyretic drugs in patients with fever and infection literature review by Jennifer Ludwig and Hazel McWhinney.
McWhinney.
McWhinney. Oh, shoot.
Did you want to answer questions or no?
We got about 15 minutes. Maybe we'll answer a couple questions. Yeah, let's do that. Somebody answering somebody else's. Let's see. We're looking for question marks. Why is it on?
We're still on.
I think we're in. Thank you. It's great. Well, docs who just push meds, they don't matter and they push any agenda. Israel is saying they have one as well, regardless of them take vaccines. Russia said they have a vaccine out now. So yeah, I don't know why it's like not showing us. Yeah. All right, everybody. I appreciate you. Love you all. Please share the truth. Share this information because we'll save lives if we do. And I know you help me. So, all right. Any sign off statements? Any?
Glad I could be here.
Sweet. Thank you for letting me, even on a bad hair day.
So guess why I should always come prepared when I'm with him. You never know. You never know what you could do.
Yeah. See y'all. Love y'all.